Hello and good morning to Coach's Corner. This is Jason Flores, and I'm here with Taya, Andrea, Mitch, and Ian, the coaches from the Endurance Lab. We're going to get a quick update from them, and we're going to jump straight into this lab. But thanks for joining us, whether it be on the podcast or the YouTube channel. Make sure you click subscribe, and you can get this episode in your email box or your podcast application every single week. Let's throw it out to the coaches and see what's going on with them this week. We're going to start with Ian this week. Ian, what do you have going on this week?
Well, Jason, this was trying to get back into my normal training routine after a couple weeks of travel and a week of just readjusting to being on my time zone. So it's been pretty good. It's a nice, easy 700 and change TSS week, and finished it off this work week wise as far as training goes. A nice tempo run today, about a little over 8.5 miles with 3 times 10 minutes of progressively faster. So 6:15 miles, 6:05 miles, 5:55 miles for those 10 minutes. So it felt good. Okay. So
I got to remember we need to end with Ian so that we feel good about the workouts he did this week and not start with him. Note to self for next week. All right. Mitch coming from neck deep in the snow from what it sounds like. Mitch, what's going on over there?
Yeah, you know what? I continue to work on my consistency in building. And then, the crazy thing that happened this week was, through a discussion in the triathlon room, I almost got not shamed, but I actually got motivated to get back in the pool. So I made it to the pool this week and swam. And note to self is taking 6 months off from swimming is not a recipe for success. That was the hardest 500 meters I think I've swam in years.
Well, Mitch, I thought you were going to say you just went to the pool and then you looked at the pool and called it good. So that's better.
I actually got in, but probably what's motivating me more is my youngest is on a swim team now, and if I'm not careful, she's going to be smoking me in the pool this summer. So
wow. This is the same daughter that is a American Ninja Warrior?
Yeah, she's a little ninja girl, yeah. So
wow.
The one who mocks you during your strength workouts?
That's the one.
Yeah, that one, yeah.
It's like, I don't understand. Why can't you do that?
The one who can probably do box, like where you stand on the ground and jump onto a box, she can probably do like multiples of what I could do, yeah.
Yeah,
and she's awesome. Like, she's only 50 inches, so she's like Ian size.
Ian size. like pocket size. All right. Andrea was having some issues earlier, but should be connected here. So Andrea, what's going on your side? We'll circle back. Taya, I heard you're in a new place, so tell us what's happening with all your tech stuff and workouts.
I'm in a new place.
Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, Andrea. Let's hear it.
Just feels like it hits a flow. So I did some running up in the mountains where you're literally going just straight up and starting to get into the snow and straight back down again. And it just was awesome. I had my little doggy with me, and swimming was good. I think putting my video up from a couple of years ago made me even more super conscious of my positioning in the water. And it just felt really good this week. And I was hitting faster times. I think I was averaging under 140s for the 100s, so I was really happy with that. So yeah, it's all going really well, and I'm really enjoying the forum.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely getting a good mix of topics and that sort of thing. And you're posting some nice pictures. That means that the weather is changing there, or at least you're getting days where you can get out and do your work, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Taya's coming from a new location. She can tell us about what's going on with her and how her week went.
So the new location is still in my house, just a different room. We're having a snow day here, and of course everybody's home, so it's been a little bit noisy. But I had a great week this week, coming back from a recovery week, feeling really strong, ready to work hard. I had 3 back-to-back workout days working on climbing, actually. Started to work on that. So good.
Yeah, so super important skills, even indoors. I think as athletes and as coaches, we're finding ways where we can find transferable workouts that we can do indoors to be able to make ourselves stronger outdoors, where, again, the layers, the ideas of layers to what we do here at the Endurance Lab. So definitely great. It's all evolving. It's a really great thing. All right, we're going to jump to This Week in the Lab. We're going to go back to Taya here, and she's going to tell us a little bit about the workouts and what a lot of our riders have coming up this weekend. So Taya?
So this week we worked on power sprints, which are sprints starting from a almost a stopped position and bigger gear. Then we worked on strength steps, 3 minutes on 3 times, 2 sets. So those were low cadence, 60 to 70 RPMs. And then to close out the week, we had the sweet spot ladder workout, different than the previous 2, regular cadence. And actually, it's a little bit of a challenging workout, surprisingly, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just because we're on recovery week doesn't mean we don't have challenge. There's not anything challenging. It's just, reduced intensity. So I like how you came up with that one for the end of the week, because people are starting to feel good and it lets you test the sensations out.
Right. And I think this week using for skills, going back to like low cadence things, and this is the first full sprint one that people can really kind of wind up and open up those legs, because we're not really doing this high neuromuscular, very high energy output workouts. It's not something that we're focusing on, something that you would typically focus on later on, let's say in a specialty phase or something like that. I think people are liking to be able to stretch their legs during this week. So we've got a lot of good response from that, but we'll bring that back in the hot topics. All right, Ian, in the multi-sport world, what do we have going on?
Yeah, so we've had obviously the recovery week as well. We've done the same bike workouts, but we've added a nice little recovery ladder swim, and then two easy runs, an aerobic workout, so just a slightly faster pace and a really low heart rate, and then one short swim that had a lot of speed to it, the 24 by 50 meters or 50 yards, depending on your pool. And it's again, it's recovery week, so we're really just keeping it nice and easy. And I think one of the concerns why it hasn't really been voiced, I know it's going through people's heads, is the why are we running so slow? That's just how it is. One of the problems I've seen with runners when we're in these recovery weeks, triathletes especially, but runners are also pretty bad at it. We don't really understand how slow is supposed to be, or how slow easy is supposed to be. Miranda Carfrae, she's a multi-time world champion. She calls it stupid easy. And if you're not running to the point where you're going, I'm so slow, then you're probably going too hard for nice, easy runs. And I found, working with a number of athletes, working with myself, listening to some of the top tier pros, that you got to get those longer, not necessarily long, but those easier runs in for help your body adapt, for one, but also reduce that beating on the body, and it really help develop that aerobic engine. So that's kind of one of those things. And then on the swimming side of the house, we're really focusing on this week and next week on good technique. That's why we're not doing a lot of 400 or 800 meter intervals, because technique is everything in swimming. You can be the strongest person in the world, have the best aerobic capacity, but if your technique is horrible, you are not going to go anywhere fast. So technique. I know it's boring. I know it's horrible. I know it's like getting waterboarded at times, but we got to do it.
Well, that's exciting. So haven't spent much time in the pool, and from Mitch's story, it doesn't sound really like an endeavor that I'd like to try. But you know what? It might be a fun live stream, and I love doing things for viewers, so maybe I'll have to do it just for that.
Well, wall tag is a fun game,
And how does that go?
The tag a wall. You just go down, tag the wall, come back, tag the wall, go down, tag the wall. So no, it's good, but unfortunately, if you put the camera underwater, you can't live stream, Jason.
Oh man, we'll have to find some way. All right, okay. So let's go straight into hot topics in the lab. I am going to mix it up here a little bit. I know Andrea hasn't been on the last Coach's Corner, but she's got some really interesting topics to bring forward. So Andrea, how are we on connection? Can we go straight towards you today?
Yeah, should be good. So I put a post up on the forum to try and nudge people to start having a look at their training peaks after they've done their workouts, to have a look at how long they're spending in the various zones, and to start having a think about how that relates to fueling. But when we're thinking about fueling, we need to try and keep two main themes in mind. And one is that we're fueling, which is energy, because we're trying to make sure that we're giving our bodies what it needs for the session. But also further backwards, we need to think about, are we giving the body all of the construction parts? So the micronutrients to help the enzymes functioning, to help keep our cardiovascular system working very well, the nervous system, the lactate clearing system. So all of these, vegetables and healthy fats and phospholipids, all the other things that I'm always talking about have a really real reason for being in the diet. And so you'll notice these things. So we had that session that we had with the sprints. If you look back and have a look at your training peaks, you'll notice that we weren't working for very long, but we were working hard, and the rest was easy, or relatively easy. And the system that we were using, and the coaches can jump in, would have been more so about how we can buffer lactate, how we can remove hydrogen ions out of the muscle into the circulation, recover and get going again. And this isn't actually as much about fueling as it is about the general consistency of our diet. So getting good minerals in, getting good antioxidants in, having a good cardiovascular system, having a good oxygen system, our breathing and our lungs and the cell membrane. This is why it's really important to eat well as all of the time as best you can. And this session would have been interesting if you follow a low carb diet, because not that you need a huge amount of carbs to fuel it, but mentally you have to be sharp, and our body knows what fuel it has in the tank. Have you ever tried, any of you guys, to do a sprint session when you're low on fuel?
It's horrible. It's so bad. Oh my God, it's so bad. Yeah, I've done kind of lower fueling and lower carb, and it's just, you just throw it. It's just thrown in, and you can't. People say like you can, you just lose that top end. You just do. So I totally.
You just want to go to sleep on the bike. Like you could go forever in the recovery, but when you're asking your body to sprint, it's like, no, I'm not going to do this. So even though most of it is creatine phosphate and a little bit of anaerobic glycolysis, you still need to have a base of having a little bit of fuel in the system and for it to be well recovered from the previous session, or your body just knows it. And then you're wasting your time. Yeah. So it's an important one. But if you look at the difference with, say, the 3-2-3 strength steps, that did need some good fueling, because you were using quite a lot of carbohydrate as your fueling. There was quite a lot in the tempo zone for that one. And as well, it was a little bit more taxing on our muscles. So protein as your recovery is going to be important so that you can do the repair work and build the strength in response to the sessions that you've just done. So trying to look in on what your TP review is saying afterwards to kind of start being a bit more clued in with how to prepare and how to recover from the various sessions. So you need to ask yourself about how long is the session and how intense is the session. And the more intense it is, the greater proportion of carbohydrate that you're using as fuel and the lesser the amount of fat. But also it's the duration of the session. So agreed, a very low, easy zone 2 recovery may not be using as much carbs, but if you're doing it over a long duration, you're going to start to need to top up because you're depleting. So it's looking at that. And I think it would be really good if we start to chat about that a bit on the forums so we can clear up any confusion. I hope I'm getting my ideas across here.
No, definitely. And, there's the performance director for Lotto Jumbo was on Joel Filial's podcast last year or so. And that's one of the things they talked about was that he had some riders who were trying to do the low carb thing to try and cut a little bit of weight, or because that's what they've been told by somebody, and he found to a rider, and these are pro level riders, all of them sucked when it came to top end when they were doing low carb.
Yeah.
They'd go for days as far as just riding at zone 2, zone 3, but the minute you start getting zone 4, zone 5 work, they're nothing.
Yeah. I think it just speaks to, there's a time and place, like we've talked about several different times, whether it being Coach's Corner or on the forum, to do that sort of thing and to have that sort of focus and to be able to to want to try to do both, let's say drop weight and increase power, it's just two opposite ends of the candle. And so it's really important to respect that. And I think right now, a lot of our riders are in the absorption phase, meaning they're trying to absorb all this information that we're kind of throwing out there. So I think if we continue with the suggestions, the things that we want people to look at, for example, the two different workouts, whether it be, fueling one way or the other, even as a coach, it's really difficult to kind of pick out for an athlete kind of what they should be eating or what they should be doing. And even just stepping back to trying to just get them understand what they're consuming and what that does for them. You know what I mean? Because people sometimes they feel like it's just that 1 hour window before that pre-workout, and then the rest of the week, the rest of the day is kind of like, you know what I mean, Andrea?
Yeah, and it's actually the rest of the week that's more important. Making every meal as nutritious as possible and focusing there with getting in more vegetables and more nutrient dense foods. And Marty Kendall writes really well about this, but also there's so much out there about keto and low carb that sometimes we're losing the point. It's not about being the best low carber. You're not doing a race and all starting at the beginning, a bit like you're a battery test to see who can go the farthest on nothing. You're trying to get your best performance ever. So it's remembering that.
Hey, look, Andrea, I encourage all of my opponents to go keto and low carb.
Exactly.
It's definitely tough. I've played with it a good amount as the research came through, and all of us have kind of either used that at a certain time of the season, but making sure that we're fueling for our workouts. So that's the take home here for all of our lab riders, is that we need to make sure that we're fueling properly, recovering properly, not just from the workout right after, post-workout, but all throughout the day, making sure that you're focusing those days. So it's just the same way we would plan anything else when you do your workout, getting prepared to do that, whether it be outdoors or indoors, but also making sure that the fuel that you're putting in, it's a conscious thought of what we're doing.
And going back to what Andrea was mentioning in terms of looking at your training peaks and understanding the zones that you're working with, if you do not have the Training Peaks premium account, you can look at the workouts and the description of the workouts, or even Strava, and classify your workouts into, easy/endurance pace, then the tempo ones, then the sweet spot ones, and threshold and VO2. And of course, going from easy all the way to VO2, you can imagine how much you need to have in terms of carbs, for example. So let's keep this conversation going in the forum. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, and then definitely questions. Right now, we're kind of just putting information out there, but for you lab riders, if there's any questions, definitely let us know. Great topic and resources there. Okay, we're gonna circle back. Taya has a little bit of a kind of overall view of some of the topics about the ideas that we were kind of going to try to put through this week in the lab. So Taya, tell us about those workouts and kind of those focuses.
So 2 of the workouts that we had this week worked on power and strength in the legs. The power sprints, because you're starting, like I said before, from higher gear and very slow speed. Cadence drills for the 3-3-3 strength workout. Overall, strength drills and muscular activity, but they also can improve the health of your connective tissues, thus enhancing joint stability in your knees, hips, and ankles. So the purpose of low cadence is being able to lay down the big power to have at your disposal. So you have the ability to turn a huge gear when you need to. And examples of when you might need to is a short, steep climb to get on top of your gear when accelerating, or when you're overgeared coming out of a turn, starting from a dead stop, etc. So these intervals are also excellent for gradually improving the resilience of your connective tissue, and they provide an excellent opportunity to focus on your ability to control the lateral movement on your knees, especially when you're at the top of the pedal stroke. The workout can be seen as hill stomps. So you're working on the mechanics of your stroke at a very low RPM, or not very low. We're at 60 to 70, which is actually end of the low and beginning of the regular RPM. Powerful pedal stroke, which combining with the high cadence work that we also do in the lab, then you have build a powerful and fluid pedal stroke altogether. people have knee discomfort. And that might be because you have an knee issue, or it might be because you're not used to it. I used to have knee discomfort early on when doing these drills. Over time, I have overcome that and I don't have it anymore. Some of the things that you can do to help you. Well, of course, you can bring the cadence up during the workout a little bit to get to a comfort level, but you're still doing a low cadence for your purpose. And I mentioned that in the instruction video. But also there are exercises that help build the muscles in your legs so that it provides knee stability. So squats, leg raises, or lateral bench shuffles, cross-legged lunges. So when you do cross your leg in the back, go the right leg behind the left and do a lunge. So you're working on also your glutes. We did power sprints. That again is teaching you to overcome heavy resistance very quickly. And they help wake up muscle fibers that too often we don't train. So when we talk about practicing sprints, it's not just for sprinters. And Ian made a comment as well for triathletes in the forum about that. So Ian, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so, one of the misconceptions of triathlon is that we just can go one speed for hours on end. And I like when my opponents or my competitors train like that because it's fairly awesome for me. But the thing that people have to remember is we're never on a course. I wouldn't say never. We're rarely on a course where it's just straight out and back, or a loop that has very, very shallow turns. So you have to pass people. You have to go in and out of turns. So you're constantly changing speed, whether you think you are or not. And if you're passing legally, and I say that isn't if, because not everyone does it, but if you're passing legally, you have roughly 30 seconds to get through the draft zone of the rider in front of you and in front of them and get past them. Now, when you're passing someone who's significantly slower than you, you just hold your same wattage and you roll through. But if I'm catching someone in my age group who's just a little bit slower than me, like I'm riding 22 miles an hour and they're riding 21, 30 seconds is not a lot of time to make up that draft zone. So you have to put in a small surge. Granted, am I going to get out of the saddle and sprint at 12 watts a kilo? No, but these kind of sprint workouts help you surge and recover because they teach the body to clear those efforts. And in the case of passing in a triathlon, you're going well above what your target is, and then you're going back to your target or just below. So you're having to clear at a harder effort. But if you're accustomed to clearing a much harder effort, namely these kind of sprints, your body can handle that.
One last comment I'll make here, power, right? So when we build a workout in Training Peaks and that becomes a file that you put in Zwift, Trainer Road, etc., we have to put something in there in terms of percentage of FTP for the interval. It doesn't allow us to put on a range or to just say it's an open-ended interval, go as hard as you can, whatever that means for you.
Yeah.
Please remember that as you're doing these workouts, especially the sprints. And I typically mention that in the introduction video or the video that describes the workout so that you know that you don't need to worry about that star or that number to hit in a workout like the power sprints, for example.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to kind of the limitations as we move indoors and try to program, I guess would be the word, these workouts into something that is looking for numbers of like a 0 or a 1 for us to like either accomplish or not accomplish. So we've had that conversation before. So just making sure that you are paying attention to what we are describing in the video and the goal of the workout, that's going to be really, really important. All right, with that, I'm going to slide it back on over to Ian. He's going to take us to the pool and tell us what's going on as far as some swim technique and everything that's going on in the recovery week.
Yeah, so, the hot topics we had this week, obviously, we talked a lot about work in the pool, people posting videos up. Mine will eventually get up if I actually remember to put the memory card in it this morning, so hopefully I'll get it recorded tomorrow. Not like the major fail I had yesterday. But, it's a really good thing to have people look at your video. And we have a couple people with a pretty significant amount of swim experience in the forum. So we're getting a lot of good feedback. And I think what happens for a lot of people who have suffered from adult onset swimming is that we don't grow up with a coach just beating into our head how our stroke should be. So we are grown-ups and we try to rationalize things. We try to think, we overthink it. And then we start focusing on small details like the back of the push, the back of your stroke, which is a little push that accounts for maybe 2% of your propulsion. And then we're probably going to focus on our kick because that's what we see people in the master swim class doing because they all grew up swimming and we didn't, but we're all going to focus on our kick, which is probably about another 7% of your or 6% of your propulsion. But what we don't do is that hard thing, which is focus on the catch in the front part of the pole. So as we're looking through what we're doing in the lab and you're getting your videos up there, I really want people to take a look at that because the vast majority of your propulsion is going to come from that good catch out in front of you. If you can get that good high elbow bend and a good catch out in front of you and then pull that water through and pull your body over that water, you're going to go a lot faster, a lot easier, and you're not going to swim like someone who might be having a heart attack or drowning. And it's going to allow you to get through much easier at a faster pace. And we all know, for those of us who are swimming, the more you flail about, you don't go any faster, and it just becomes a lot harder. And if you can get that good front catch out there, that's going to be your first step. And then step 2 is a body position. One of the things I notice all the time is people they let their hips drop. And my favorite I hear is, "Oh, I just don't have any body fat and my body drops. I sink like a rock." And I'm like, look, if we want to go into body fat numbers, I'm pretty sure I'm going to win this one. And I sink on top of the water. So that's not a real good answer. A lot of it is about positioning. And obviously there are some people who maybe they're just more dense, like Wolverine or something like that. But this is one thing that people really have to focus on. And where I see most people doing it is during the breathing. And I'm sure Andrea has seen it too, doing the master swim classes. People tend to slightly lift their head when they breathe instead of rolling it under and getting that breath out the side. And once you do that, your hips pop down a little bit, and then you're in this constant dragging of an anchor, which is your lower half of your body. And if you don't have a good kick or good form on your kick, you're not going to be able to keep your feet up at the surface. So that's the second part we really need to focus on. And that's why I say post the video. Let us all look at it. We promise not to make fun of anyone except Mitch on the videos.
That's why you'll never see one.
That's right. And we'll get some good constructive feedback for everybody. And for those of us who didn't grow up swimming, small changes can mean big differences. I know for me, doing a 6-week swim clinic twice a week dropped me from doing a 150 or so per 100 to now I'm in the 130s when I'm pushing a little bit, and I've gone 125 for 100 meters, which for me is huge. I mean, I would consider myself Michael Phelps at that point. Because that's my weak leg is the swim, and I practice it only as much as I have to. And then the second part of talking with the lab, seeing what we've got hot topics. We've had a couple people talking about feeling tired, earlier on in the recovery week. That's normal. That is very normal. You start feeling the lingering effects. I like to call it going through the stages of fatigue. It's kind of like the stages of grief. When you have the acceptance, denial, things like that.
Wow, I like that.
Because you get to a point where you're tired, and then you push through tired to exhausted, then you push through exhausted into just like steady state zombie mode. And as you start to recover, you have to go back up through those stages to get back to normal. And recovery week usually will take you back up, but somewhere around usually Tuesday, Wednesday to Thursday of recovery week is when you just feel the worst. And that's actually when your body is just about to snap back. So that's why Saturdays are good days to throw in a little bit of hard snappy workouts in there. And once you get it back going, you'll be fine. It's just you got to work through that. And the two other parts of that are making sure you're getting enough rest and coping with regular stress from your life and work. One thing I have also found in recovery week is people tend to do, I don't have to train hard tomorrow. I'm going to stay up till 11. I'm going to have to do a long run tomorrow. I can go out and party. Sure. But if you have to work, you still have to get up at the normal time. So don't change your sleep habits just because you're on a recovery week. Try and get that. And I would argue it's more important to even get better rest and better recovery, because that's when your body is really trying to bring itself back to 100% to hit the next week hard. And that stress from life and work, I mean, a lot of us who use our training to mitigate our stress levels. We just have to find a way to balance that out a little bit, because on a recovery week, you're not going to be burning off that anger and rage that you might encounter day to day in your regular work life. So just try and find another method. Maybe it's meditating, maybe it's watching videos of cats on YouTube.
Nice.
Whatever it is that's going to make you laugh and feel happy, that's what you got to do during recovery week, similar to a taper week.
And it's definitely not going for a 2-hour hike.
It is not going for a 2-hour hike. It is not going for
Right.
2 hours of snowshoeing and cross-country skiing.
Yeah.
Things like probably not going to Disney World. I would say that's probably like in a high TSS week.
Yeah. On the heels of talking about TSS and in other parts of our life, as you look at our metrics that we record, whether it be in Strava or Training Peaks, a lot of times a question can come up, and it did in the lab this week, about monitoring TSS outside of the bicycle, outside of cycling, or any of the three things that we're looking at, whether it be swimming, running, and biking. So people were asking about monitoring TSS for snow skiing and different things like that. And I think it's a good conversation to have. And it's a big variable, in fact, of how we coach our athletes. But I think it's a fun exercise just to understand how those workouts or how those activities would compare to the type of stress that you would put if you were on the bike. But I don't think, and I think the coaches would agree here, that it would be a part of the equation of actual fatigue or fitness that you're gaining, more so something aside as a exercise that would allow riders or athletes to understand kind of how that stress can affect. And a lot of times of the week, we don't measure that amount, whether it be from work, like Ian mentioned, or cross-country things like hiking, or cross-training things like hiking or walking, even sometimes just walking through a theme park, how much stress that puts on. But definitely something that we can look just as an exercise to kind of understand. Have any of the coaches looked into stress outside of the three disciplines that we record, and how have you found athletes to find that?
Oh, I measure everything.
Yeah, I've done TSS while mowing the lawn.
Oh, really? How does that compare, Mitch?
I mean, it's essentially walking, right? I mean, it's, you could do it by heart rate, you could do it by distance. I mean, you can get into tracking all these things. I mean, I'd almost say that, more holistically, if you're going snow skiing, it's supposed to be fun. Put down the training computer, go and enjoy yourself, and just know that, you're doing a little bit of work, but you're doing it because you enjoy it, and it's supposed to be something that breaks up your life or your training, and just go out there and forget about the metrics and have fun. I think we all get it.
I would argue, Mitch, on downhill skiing, yes. If you're cross-country skiing,
measure it, because that'd actually be really compelling. But I'm not sure how, if you're going to, I mean, you're probably at that point doing a heart rate. And that's a phenomenal workout. I think we all know that. I think it's.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say is you can get into measuring all these things, and I think it's just more interesting to compare the metrics and see. But I mean, it's not going to cross over and really for mowing the lawn or downhill skiing. It's not going to impact your training.
Well, not on the riding lawnmower, Mitch.
Well, that's when you're drinking the beer while you mow the lawn. So.
So it can be that, but it can also be feel. Perfect example.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll go in a hot room for an hour and a half, and I get out of there completely spent. And the movements themselves aren't hard. The overall being in that environment takes a lot out of you. And so even though that might not, and I tried to wear a heart rate monitor once in class, it didn't work. I mean, the sweating is so insane. The heart rate monitor was sliding down. It just didn't work. But in a situation like that, then you just know how you feel afterwards, and go by that.
I think that's interesting, Thea. We have people that listen to their bodies by feel, and then there's others that really just can't get out of their headspace. And off week can be challenging, or a less intense week for the thinkers and the ones who constantly like to be doing stuff. So maybe to throw a different spin on it, tracking heart rate variability could be good. And if you set the challenge of this week, I'm finding out about what my body is doing on a rest week to collect data so that you're learning more about your body, maybe they'll be able to let go and take the time out and relax and not fill the time off with more doing that isn't actually rest. might work.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's good because I have two athletes that on a rest week or like a complete rest week after a big event. My job is to keep them from killing people and going insane.
Yeah, totally.
My ultra runner who just did 100 miles decided that she couldn't handle a complete rest week, so she did a half marathon the next weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Well, that's just a training run, isn't it, at that point?
Yeah.
That's nuts. All right. So we're gonna quickly try to transition over. We're gonna send this over to Mitch, and he's gonna be talking about just getting your mojo back, kind of on that same couple weeks, getting coming back to the workouts that you're doing, and kind of from some time off to getting back on the bike and then doing what we need to do. So Mitch, bring us back.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Jason. So I mean, I've noticed this. I've been doing endurance training sports for about 10, 11 years now. And periodically I get in these funks. It's almost like I was just sitting here thinking while we were having this dialogue, it's almost like your training is depressed in some way. And, whether it's because you were sick or you had an injury or you've been doing a lot of travel. I've even noticed that sometimes after like a really great race where I just can't get motivated to work out and I can't get on the bike, or I'm just like in a real funk is the best way to describe it. My wife notices this, we've talked about this before. So I've kind of done a little bit of reading and trying to think about, because, I was sick for a couple of weeks and I kind of got into that funk again, and I'm trying to get right, to get the ship righted again. So really the first thing that I try to do is I try to figure out, what's wrong. Is it just like overall stress in my life? Was it the great performance in a race? Am I not sleeping well? So really first thing you do is try to figure out, is there like some root cause that I can fix? Other things that I've done is, I've put away the Garmin like for running, or I've ignored the power meter, and I've just gone out and just tried to start finding the joy or the fun in actually doing the event, right? Forget about what my TSS is, forget about if I'm hitting my power target, just go and enjoy yourself. In some ways that you can actually get to do that is get back into the group. If you've been, doing group rides, or you're running with a group of guys or women that you're friends with, get back into that group. Sometimes I find that just like actually having the commitment, telling a friend, hey, we're going to go for a run on Saturday, it gets you out that door, right? Because you're committed to do it. Sign up for a group ride on Zwift. Make sure that your friends that you would ride with know, and make sure that you get there. Along those same lines, and we talked about this before, is forget about the training and racing. Just get back into the enjoyment of the act itself. But then this is sort of counterintuitive, and I found this is always what really gets me over it. And like right now, I don't have anything really scheduled, but it's figuring out what's that next race, or what's your plan for the next few months from an event perspective, and get them on the calendar and start getting excited about the upcoming event, checking out the website, reading race reports, talking to your friends or other racers about it. And that really gives you the motivation to start training again and actually getting into that plan of workouts and improving yourself and working towards that goal. And then I found this online, and I think this is really interesting, is remember the phrases get to and got to, right? We're all privileged that we get to run or we get to ride. We're doing this for fun. We're doing it for the enjoyment of the actual act and, act of improving ourselves, the joy of competition. So really focus on the get to and try to get away from the got to, right? The got to's got a kind of a negative connotation. So let's focus on the positive, which is we get to do this and it's a lot of fun and we get a ton of enjoyment out of it. Jason, I'll give it back to you. Yeah.
Can I make some comments on that? Because I found that was really, really interesting. When I have a race coming up that might be my main race, for some reason, I'll always book another race before I've done it. So that I think psychologically I'm giving myself something that's just there ahead. Mm-hmm. But even though it's just kind of there, so I know there's something next that I'm working towards, but I'll always take a rest after each race, because I think people don't credit the amount of mental fatigue that has been expended in the months coming up to a race, where all of the scheduling and planning and pushing yourself to go out on those days that maybe you felt a little bit tired to get all the green boxes on your training peaks. I think the mental investment is massive. So there is going to be a period of a little bit of tiredness where your brain is just going, I don't want to do it anymore. I just need nothing. And as well, the comment about doing it for fun. I always get people to remember, what's their why? Why are you doing this? For you specifically. Like, yes, we all want to go out and smash a great race, but there's often deeper meanings. We've such an intimate journey with our training and what we're learning about ourselves, that it's important to keep remembering the why, so that there's a bigger context on everything. I don't know if that resonates with anyone.
I think it's phenomenal. I think that's really great.
Absolutely. So really good points there. Using those as springboards to as motivation, using those mental tricks that we have as far as reaching out and deeper into yourself to figure out kind of what drives you, and making sure you're giving yourself gratitude for the things that you're doing, and that your ability to enjoy those things that you're doing. And it's not a job. It's something that we've chosen to do, and that we are rewarding ourselves with the fitness and the ability to do what we like. So some really great points there. All right, we're going to jump over to Lab Rat of the Week. And I'm going to throw this to Taya. She has some experience with this writer, but I'm just going to kind of introduce her story for us, and we can kind of tell her story for the lab and what she's contributed to the forum as well. So Taya, you got that for us?
Yes, so Lindsay is our Lab Rat of the Week. And Lindsay, this is her second lab. She did the December lab as well. And she made some comments. She's been contributing to the forum quite a bit with her experiences and how she has progressed from her lab to this lab. And so her story is that she has been cycling for about 4 years and consistently training structured workouts other than some trainer road workouts a couple of years ago when she first got her indoor trainer. She is saying that with the labs, she is looking fitter and all the work is paying off. The lab, so before she started training in the lab, she had never been on a trainer for longer than an hour and 30 minutes. She has been feeling stronger. She is seeing progress. And in fact, we chatted at the beginning of this lab workouts and performance, and we increased her FTP manually, that she was able to do the workouts and more. So that has been working out great for her as well. She's got the perfect amount of challenge there for the workouts that we're doing. Keep up the great work, and thanks for your contributions to the forum.
Absolutely. So really great highlights, from the contributions of lab writers. And Lindsay, you've definitely put some time in. She had some good comments about some of her experience in the pool as well. So just getting interactive and jumping in. I know a lot of times you can be on the forum and it can feel very overwhelming. I think we've had some post about how you can consume just smaller portions of it. Maybe the parts that are coming through nutrition, or maybe the parts just in the lab. It can just feel like so many people are talking about so many different things. So just maybe focus on a portion of it, grasp onto one of the topics and go ahead and throw your 2 cents in. We've got a lot of lab writers. We've got a lot of people that are reading the post, and we can see that on the backside. We still see you reading the post. So we want this interaction to happen. So go ahead and throw something up. It's a safe place. It's a place that just has the same people that are doing the same workouts week in and week out. So they are going through the same thing. So if you're thinking it and you have a question, most likely someone else out there also does. So, okay. So as we move to On the Horizon for next week, we're getting back to work. We are going to be doing some SST focused work with some VO2 kind of efforts mixed in at the beginning and the end of each of those intervals. So it'll be very, very interesting. In the group workout module in Zwift, we have the same leaders this week. We've got Mitch on Tuesdays at 5:30 Eastern doing the Taj Mahal workout. We have Stefan doing over-unders 646 on Thursday at 5:15 Eastern. We've got Taya's Hot Spot at noon doing Taj Mahal. All the riders all of the coaches are getting actually really good traction and good return riders. So we're very excited, and we hope that you guys are taking part in this if this is an available time slot for you. And again, if there isn't, we could also start to try to motivate people to kind of get together at other times to be able to get these workouts done as well. And don't forget, on Thursdays and Sundays, ODZ does run Zone 2 workouts throughout the day as well. So if you're looking into that, definitely check out the Team ODZ calendar at teamodz.com for that. Was there any other comments from the coaches that we wanted to wrap up? We covered a whole lot of topics today. So if there's anything we want to throw in, let's throw that in now.
I think the conversation was great today. We covered a lot.
Absolutely. So from the work that we're doing this week, going over how we should be fueling our sprints versus strength workouts, making sure that we're knowing what zones that we're looking at when we're working out, and understanding the purpose of each of those workouts, whether it be low cadence and kind of what you're really focusing on, or that really high-end sprint. It's very, very important. And then really understanding kind of all of the food and the recovery that we're trying to get is not only focused within the hour of before and after a workout, but in fact, all throughout the week is super important. And then going all the way across to making sure that we're getting that swim technique in and getting everything kind of focused in and what you're trying to focus in. The same way we focus our workouts on the bike on different portions of the pedal stroke, let's say, we also need to make sure that we're focusing during the swim technique, as Ian mentioned today. And then just making sure that we stay motivated and give the gratitude to ourselves for the fitness and for the opportunity that we have to do what we do. And so with that, a quick summary of what we had over here in the Coach's Corner today. I want to say thank you for joining us. And if you want to get this in your email box or in your podcast app, search for The Endurance Lab in your podcast app. Click subscribe in the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to get this fresh every single week, as well as all our other content, whether it be Chat and Chill, What's Up with Power, or In the Feed Zone, as well as Coach's Corner. So from the coaches here to you guys in the lab, we want to thank you for joining us. And you've had a great recovery week, and let's get back to work, and we will see you next week in the Coach's Corner. Thanks again. Have a great week.